Welcome back to Real Comic Book Talk, y'all. Today, man, we're here with Miss Samantha Mina, right? Say that right? Yeah, that's 3 for 3 this day, y'all. 3 for 3 with names. Y'all know how bad I am with those. She is an independent writer of this beautiful chapter novel called Spectrum. But I'm gonna let you talk about it because you're much better at it than I am.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Just let's talk about the characters and
yeah, sure.
stuff.
All right, so this is the first book of the series. It's called Spectrum in the Spectrum series, self-titled. So it's a story of war between magical and technological societies. It does have a dystopian component. It's aimed at the Hunger Games and Divergent generation, though it's very different than those books. So yeah, story of war between magical and technological societies. Very fast-paced, action-packed, very character-driven and personal. So I myself was a teenager when I started writing it. So it's been going on for a while. And it's just from the perspective, alternating back and forth between the perspectives of two teenagers, Scarlet and Cease, as they find themselves in a war 3,000 years in the future on Second Earth, and yes, there is a map. So there are 6 total books in the series, but as of now, just the first 2 have had time to come out because the series has only been releasing for about a year. This one came out last summer, this one came out this past spring. Yeah, so.
Okay, so when you say the 2 factions of Earth at a war, what caused the war?
Okay, so the war takes place on Second Earth. So there's a little map here. So it's basically a war between Conflagria and Ichthyosis because Conflagria's society wants to imperialize Ichthyosis to expand their empire. And so the nations in between also get involved in the war too because there could be a domino effect that ensues once one nation takes over and then you're surrounded by an empire. So it's mostly naval warfare because of imperialism or the threat of imperialism.
Wow, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, it's very character driven. So my goal is to really get the reader invested in who the characters are as they are child soldiers essentially.
So the reader, when they read in a book, they really are trying to pick a side.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. So there is a pretty clear distinction as to who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, but I do make sure that the main antagonists in the series, and that's Amber, he's one of the antagonists, that you have chapters written from his perspective, that he doesn't see himself as a bad guy. He sees that he is fighting for the side of justice, and that he is the good guy. And so the reader may find themselves relating to the antagonists and the side of the war that they're on, and maybe even rooting for him sometimes. Yeah, so the lines are blurred in war.
That's the best kind of villains, the one where they think they're the good guy.
Right, they don't think they're evil, no, they're fighting for truth and justice in their opinion.
Not to give anything away though, because I don't want to spoil the book.
No spoilers, yeah.
Why does he think, well, like what in his past or history makes him think that he's on the side of right?
Right, so he believes that the government that he's fighting for is achieving peace and justice and keeping society running, and that without that government, the country would fail. And so really, in truth, the government is really corrupt. There's a lot of problems, but he kind of has this perspective of, look at how well society is functioning, and we want to spread and expand and bring our gifts basically to others. And so he really has a skewed perspective, but you really do start to see where he's coming from. He also has personal interests as far as family members and such who are soldiers on that side of the war as well. And so you can really start to feel yourself, understanding where he's coming from, though you still do want the protagonists to win.
Almost like,
yeah.
It's gonna sound weird, almost like Pocahontas. When the English came over to America, they said, man, we can help you build roads and stuff, like we don't need that. Actually, and then it started a war.
That's a really great metaphor, absolutely, yeah.
I know. I remember that. It's the first thing I remember of Pocahontas.
Smart, yeah.
And I watched it as a kid. It's weird.
I do too.
So are there any side characters that may end up being a bigger part of the story than you really intended?
Absolutely, yes. And so I have a very large cast of characters. So there's a lot of, it's kind of hard to see in this, but in later installments in the series, this is all 6 books. So some of the minor characters that show up in the first book or maybe mentioned a few times or play a smaller role, they can develop into major characters by the end of the series. And so basically, one of my goals when I write is I try to make sure that everything is mentioned for a reason. So if a character has a line or makes a brief appearance at some point in book 1, you better believe that exactly what that character said, did, or his appearance is going to be important and come back later in the series, and that it's going to have some significance significance to it.
Like a shared
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah.
Like one thing can lead into another thing.
Yep, I try to-
Everything's a domino. Oh, that's,
Yes.
We call that perfection. Good job.
Thank you. I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
So will you be at any other cons coming up soon?
Yes, so I try to keep a pretty full schedule. My next con on the calendar will be the Baltimore Comic Con at the end of September. So I try to do at least a couple shows a month.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That
and then
is a busy schedule.
yeah, and then after that I'm doing the Cleveland Comic Con and then in Ohio and then the Steel City in Pennsylvania to round out the year. Yeah.
All right, so in case people that won't be able to make it to any of the cons,
Yeah.
is there any place where they can buy your book online?
Yes, so it's available on Amazon. My website is spectrumseries.org. So you can find links to not just the show schedule, but places you can buy it, like Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Books A Million. A lot of links there to show where you can find it, whether on bookstore shelves, or online. It's
Now,
also available on the Kindle.
How much is the individual books themselves?
So they're $15 each for the paperback, $10 for the ebook. But at shows, I tend to do a special, a 2 for $25 if you want to get the set.
All right, thank you for all your time.
Thank you.
Guys, make sure you go pick up Spectrum. Y'all know me. I told you I read everything.
Awesome.
But just thank you so much, and I hope you continue on your book because it sounds like it's going to be amazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right. Until next time, deuces.